Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Hello everyone and welcome to your English class. In our lesson today, we will continue with our unit which is titled Wishful Thinking. Our lesson today is the pronunciation and the conversation lesson in your books, page 50 and 51. All you need for the lesson today is your books, page 50 and 51, a sheet of paper and a pen to take down your notes. So let's get started. So by the end of today's lesson, you will be able to practice reducing. You will be able to reduce the would you and the could you in questions. Also, you will be able to answer specific questions based on a conversation. And by the end of today's lesson, you will be able to use real talk expressions in a short conversation. Let's get started with the conversation part. If you still remember from the discussion lesson, the first lesson in this unit, we were actually asking you about imaginary situations. If you were in this situation, what would you do? What could you do? Let's listen to them one by one and imagine that you were the one who would be asked about this question. What would you do? Let's listen to the first one.
If you could only take one thing with you to a desert island, what would you take?
About to be in a desert island by yourself. What would you take? What is the thing that you take? Let's say, maybe for me, I will take my cell phone so I can stay in touch, to be in touch with others. Maybe others will say, I would take a bottle of water, or will say my computer, or whatever the thing. Notice, if you had to stay in a desert island, we are imagining a situation. It is not real. How about the second situation in here? We're having the ETs. Let's listen to the question, and what would you do?
If you had a close encounter with an extraterrestrial, what question would you ask?
So let's imagine it is an imaginary situation. You are in a close encounter, face to face, and you had the chance to speak with the ETs. Who are the ETs? Those, let's say, those who live in other planets, maybe in Mars or on the moon. If you had a close encounter with them, what would you ask them? What questions would you ask them? Maybe you would ask them questions about where do you live? Or I would ask them, how do you live? Or how could you hide yourself all this time? Let's go to the other in here. Put yourself in the situation and answer this question. Let's listen to it.
If you could choose a place to live, which city or country would you choose?
Let's imagine that you could choose wherever in the world to live on. Which city, country, or a place would you choose? Which one would you choose? I would choose to live in Saudi Arabia. Maybe you would say, I would choose to live in a place by the sea or in the desert. It is up to you. So where would you choose to live? How about in here? Let's listen to the question and try to answer it.
If you could travel through time, would you go to the past or to the future?
Let's imagine that you can go through time. You can go to the future or you can go back to the past. Which, let's say in here, would you go to the future or you would go to the past? For me, I believe I would go to the future to check technologies in the future. Maybe you could say that I would go to the past and see my loved ones or my ancestors, the old people. Okay, all of these are imaginary situations. If you have noticed that all of the questions are about would you and could you. When we are asking a question, we're saying would you, not I could or you could. Would you and could you. And you have noticed how is it pronounced. Let's listen to the pronunciation, why it is pronounced. Just the would with you, the could with you. Let's listen to them.
Would you? Could you?
So as you have noticed, whenever we're having the d sound followed by the y sound, just like in here, we're having d followed by y, so it will turn into the j sound. Would you? Then the other, could and y, d and y sound. This one is the j sound. So it is not could you, it is could you, would you. So we're having any d sound followed by a y sound, the y letter, we will have the j sound. It is j sound. So let's listen to it one more time. And here we're having
Would you? Could you?
So as you have noticed, it is not would, it is would you. We are trying to assimilate, to mix them all together. Would you? Could you? Just like in here, the idea of assimilation is blending them together, mixing them together. We're not going to put a schwa or a space in between them. Would you? Would you? Could you? Could you? And the d and the y sound, when a word ends with the d sound and the next word begins with a y sound, and the two sounds often meet together and they will be changed into a j sound. So we're having here, would you do me a favor? How would you pronounce the sentence? Would you do me a favor? Let's listen and try to practice.
Would you do me a favor?
You can notice in here, would you do me a favor? Not would you, would you. The d, y will be would, j sound. Would you do me a favor? Okay, so it is a j sound. Now let's go to your books on page 50. Page 50 in your books, we're having many questions. Some of them will start with would, others start with could. Read, practice while you are listening. Let's listen.
What would you do? Where would you go? What could you do? Where could you go?
So as you have noticed, all of them were having the d followed by the y sound. So could you and would you. All of them, would you and could you. Not d sound, it is a j sound, a j sound. Now I want you to go back to the discussion lesson. In here, we're having question, read the people's wants and wishes again in the discussion lesson. Underline the would you and the could you word groups. Practice reading the sentences aloud. Go back to the discussion lesson at the beginning of the unit. Underline the would you, the questions, not the sentences, the question. Would you and the could you, and try to practice reading them. I've collected them together, I've gathered them all together, and you can listen to them while you can see them. Let's listen together.
What would you take? Who would you be? What question would you ask? Which city or country would you choose? What changes would you make? Would you go to the past or to the future?
So let's notice in here, we're having what would you do? Also, who would you be? The other question, number 3, what question would you ask? Number 4, which city or country would you choose? So we're having the j sound. Number 5, what changes would you make? And the last one, would you go to the past or the future? When we're having a d sound followed by the y sound, so we will say j. It will turn to be a j sound. Okay, now let's go into the conversation part in your books, page 51. Page 51 in your books. The conversation lesson. Okay, let's look at the beginning into here. Do you like watching TV game shows? Do you like them? For me, I like watching TV game shows. How about you? When we're having a game and we're having a presenter who're having participants, and he's going, sometimes we'll ask them questions, some other times they're going to do things, activities, and by the end we will have only one winner. They will compete against each other. Maybe they are individuals or groups. Do you like them to watch them on TV? I like them so much, and I spend long time watching them because I believe it is very interesting and exciting to see people competing, working with each other, cooperating with each other. How about you? Have you ever participated in a TV show? Whether you were the interviewer, you were the presenter, or you were the, let's say, the guest, or you played in a game. Have you? If you had ever been there, I guess it would be a very interesting and a very good experience. Okay, let's go now to your books, page 51. In here, who are the speakers in our conversation today? Just look at the bold names in bold. They are two. They are actually Yusuf and Michael. So we're having Michael and Yusuf talking together. And what can you see in the picture? We're having two friends talking with each other who are Yusuf and Michael talking to each other, and we're having here someone who looks like a rich man in a private jet, his own airplane. It looks like very fancy, very expensive for himself. Okay, now I want you to listen to the whole conversation and come up for comprehensive listening and reading for a general idea. What are they talking about? Yusuf and Michael. They're talking about a general topic. What is it? Let's listen and you will tell.
Some people are really interested in participating in a TV game show. I read about this guy who won $1 million prize on a TV game show.
Well, I read about a family that won $100 million as a prize. Now to me, that would be a real problem. I wouldn't know what to do with so much money.
You wouldn't know what to do with so much money? You have to be crazy to say that. If I won that kind of cash, I'd know exactly what to do. I have it all planned out.
What would you do then?
I'd divide the amount into 3. I'd give 1/3 to my family. Another third I'd spend on traveling to places I've always dreamed of visiting. I'd buy a house for myself, and a new car, and I'd have a ball.
And what would you do with the rest?
Okay, so what are they, Michael and Yusuf, what are they talking about? They're actually discussing imagining the situation if they won $1 million or $1 million cash prize. If they won a big amount of money, what would you do and what could you buy? Okay, now listen one more time for specific information. You will listen again to the same conversation between Yusuf and Michael and find the answers for these questions. Number 1, what did the man win? And how much did the family win? 3, what would Michael do with $100 million? And what would Yusuf do with $100 million? So, at the beginning, then, what would each one of them do with the cash prize? Let's listen again.
Some people are really interested in participating in a TV game show. I read about this guy who won $1 million prize on a TV game show.
Well, I read about a family that won $100 million as a prize. Now to me, that would be a real problem. I wouldn't know what to do with so much money.
You wouldn't know what to do with so much money? You have to be crazy to say that. If I won that kind of cash, I'd know exactly what to do. I have it all planned out.
What would you do then?
I'd divide the amount into 3. I'd give 1/3 to my family. Another third I'd spend on traveling to places I've always dreamed of visiting. I'd buy a house for myself, and a new car, and I'd have a ball.
And what would you do with the rest?
So, speaking at the beginning, what did the man win? How much did he win? I have heard about a guy who won $1 million prize. So he won $1 million as a prize. How about the family? How much did the family win? The family won $100 million as a prize. So 1 million, 100 millions. Now we're having Michael and Yusuf are imagining. They are trying to imagine, what if we were the family or the man? What would they do with the money? What would Michael do with $100 million? He said that it would be a real problem. He wouldn't know what to do with so much money. He believed that it would be his biggest problem. I wouldn't know what to do with so much cash. I'm not familiar with so much money, so I don't want to win it. It would be a problem. How about Yusuf? What would Yusuf do with $100 million? He said, I have it all planned out. He said that he would divide the amount into 3. He would give 1/3 to his family, another third spent on traveling to places I have always dreamed of visiting. I would buy a house for myself and a new car. So he had it all planned out. He would divide it into 3 parts, one for himself, one for his family, and the third he didn't tell about it. How about you? What would you do with $100 million? Do you think it's a problem or a bliss? Okay, so speaking about what would Yusuf do with his money, we have said that he would divide it into 3 parts. The first part would go to his family. I would give 1/3 of it to my family. So we're having 1/3 to his family. I would give it to them to do whatever they want to do with the money. The other third, or let's say the second third, would be for him. He said, I would have a ball. I would enjoy and I will do whatever I want to do with this money. I would travel. I would go on a paid trip. Also, I would buy myself a house for myself, and also I would buy a fancy car. We still have another third. This is the second third. We still have another third. What do you think that he would do with the third part? We still have one more. What do you think? If you were Yusuf, what would you do other than a car, house, traveling, and giving it to your family? Would you buy yourself jewelry? Would you buy, let's say, your private jet? Or you would give it to the poor people? What would you do, you yourself? Here we're having, by the end in here, Michael asked, and what would you do with the rest, the last third? Here, what do you think Yusuf's answer would be? Let's imagine that he would say that I would probably give it to charity. What is charity? I will give it just like yesterday's listening when we were having Jenna, Lynn, and Sahar. They were planning for charity, a campaign. Those people in need, they will give them the money. It could be to the people directly or to official and authorized organizations. Or you could say, I would invest the money in the stock market and try to make more money. I would take it, invest it in stock market. I guess it's a good idea to invest it so we will have more and more, not to waste it. Or he could say that I would give it to you, of course. I would give it to you, Michael. Of course, you are a good friend, so 1 part for my friends, 1 part for my family, and 1/3 for me. How about you? What would you do with $100 million or a prize? Would you buy a car or you would invest it? Okay. Now I wanted to go back in page 51. We're having the after conversation questions, these 3 questions. Read the questions read the conversation one more time and underline the correct answers. Number 1, who won some money and how did the people win it? Then, what would Michael do with $100 million? And what 2 things would Yusuf do with the $100 million? Let's start with the first one. Try to find the answers within the conversation and underline them. Who won some money? A guy someone won $1 million prize on a TV game show. And another family won $100 million as a prize. So we're having 2 winners. A guy, someone, and a family. So it should be a family game show. Now, when they were imagining Michael and Yusuf, what would Michael do with $100 million? He said. Michael says that he wouldn't know what to do with so much money. It would be a problem, not a blessing. How about the 2 things that Yusuf would do with $100 million? He said Yusuf would give 1/3 of the money to his family. He would spend 1/3 on traveling to places that he has always dreamed of visiting. So 1/3 for his family, another 1/3 for himself. And the third third, we're speaking about the things that we made our guesses about it. When we were listening to Michael and Yusuf, they said some people are really interested in participating in a TV game show. I read about this guy. Who is this guy? And when do we use this guy? We're actually using the phrase this guy informally. It is an informal way to say this person, someone. Instead of saying I have heard of someone, no, we'll say this guy. It means someone who I don't know who he is, an anonymous person, someone, this guy. However, it's not formal, less formal. Then Michael said, well, I read about a family who won $100 million as a prize. Now to me, that would be a real problem. I wouldn't know what to do with so much money. When you say to me, what does it mean? It means that, in my opinion, for me, as for me, I'm not speaking about you, I'm speaking about myself. In my opinion, I think it would be a problem. Then Yusuf said, you wouldn't know what to do with so much money? He was actually surprised. Why? He was saying in here, it is an echo question to confirm what was said to show disbelief. I can't believe that you wouldn't know what to do. You wouldn't know what to do with so much money? Echo, repeating the same words again to show, am I sure? Did what I have heard right or wrong? So I am trying to make confirmation. Am I right? So in here it's an echo question to confirm what was said to show disbelief. I can't believe what I have said, what I have heard. Then when Yusuf was telling us about what he is about to do with the money, 1/3 for my family, another 1/3 for myself, then he said, and a new car, I would buy a house for myself, a new car. Then he said, he summarized it, I would have a ball. What is a ball? It's a kind of a party. So I would have a ball. It means I would have a good time. I am going to spoil myself. I will do good things for myself. I'd have a ball, I'd enjoy my time, and I would have a good time. Let's try to use these words. We will try to use this guy, have a ball, and to me. Winning is not always a blessing. I'm telling you about my opinion. So I will say, to me, winning is not always a blessing, a good thing. I know this guy who won a fancy car. Notice, someone who won a fancy car. If I were him, I would have a ball. I would have a good time and I would enjoy my time. Okay. What about you? If you won $1 million prize on a TV game show, what would you do? Do you think you are more like Yusuf or more like Michael. Do you think it would be a problem for you, or do you think it's going to be a blessing for you? For me, I would buy a fancy car, fancy house. I would have a ball. I will never believe that money is a problem. How would you feel? The idea of feeling towards winning. Whenever you win anything, I would feel delighted. I would feel happy. It would be my lucky day. How about you? How would you feel if you won 100 million cash prize? For your homework, I want you to refer to your books 102 in your books, exercise L. It's about expressing how would you feel in certain situations. Okay? I guess that is it for the lesson today, and thank you so much for your time.